Welcome to the Breck Buzz, the show that's going to tell you all about what's happening in the town of Breckenridge city government. I have two wonderful guests with me, Erin, Gigliello, councilwoman, and Ben Brewer, councilman. I always have to get those straight, you know. I want to thank you both for joining me and helping fill in the public some of the stuff you guys have been chatting about over the last month. And as some people say, it is passionate programming that we're doing here today. So, but let's start with a passionate subject of smoking. The council's been working on updating their smoking ordinance for the last, 2 months almost now, I guess.
Right.
And you took final action. So, Erin, why don't you kind of summarize what was the proposal and then where you ended up at the end of the day?
Sure. Well, our proposal included excluding smoking or prohibiting smoking from town parks, the rec path, the golf course area minus the golf course itself, in front of businesses about 10 feet, well, exactly 10 feet around business entrances, as well as 10 feet around transit stops. Now, I believe that was all, yes, that was all of them. Now, there was a discussion about patios, whether we should prohibit smoking from outdoor patios, such as a restaurant patio, whatnot, as well. And we had a discussion about a curfew type of ordinance where after 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock, people could start smoking on patios. And we discussed all sorts of options, whether maybe places that don't serve food, but then we wouldn't want to discourage people from serving food late night, that sort of thing. So what we ended up doing is excluding patios for now. So now the public can still smoke on retail stores if there are any, but people can smoke on patios still. And I believe we'll probably revisit it in the future, but this was a big ordinance. I mean, this was the first ordinance since we prohibited smoking from restaurants. So I believe, the council felt it was, we should walk before we run and see what happens after all of these new rules and go from there.
Now, it doesn't mean that a business couldn't do that anyway. This was just the community-wide requirements. So the patio, if a restaurant said, I don't want to have smoking on my patio, they can do it.
Of course, on private property, they can make their own rules. As long as they, we make our rules in the best interests of the town residents and our guests, and we do the best we can. So this is, one of those issues, of course, that balances public safety with convenience. And some people made the point that we have a lot of European guests and they like to smoke, and we have a lot of younger guests and they like to smoke. I was more on the side of public safety and trying to protect those kids and families and employees who really don't have a choice sometimes, when someone's smoking next to them on a patio. That can ruin someone's experience, and so not to mention adversely affect their health. So I think I'm an advocate of and by the way, the whole nation and the state is sort of going in that direction in terms of more restrictive rather than less restrictive in terms of tobacco use and smoking in public places. Some high profile examples would be Boulder. They recently banned all smoking and tobacco use on the Pearl Street Mall, which is a very high profile location in Colorado. And so, I think we were trying to, the inception of it was really to bring our regulations in line with the state regulations because they were a little out of sync because we hadn't really looked at it in a long time. So that's what brought the issue up, and we took a really hard look at it. Some restaurant owners showed up to the discussions, and they were worried about something that was going to ban smoking on their patios. And one restaurant owner in particular has late night service on a patio and was worried that would adversely affect his business. And so we really tried to balance, all those interests. But really, my personal opinion is that it's one of those issues that is rolling downhill in terms of being more restrictive, just because what about that employee who has to serve food on a patio where people are smoking? They don't have a choice, and they have to be there. And so some really good points were made around that. We'll see what the future holds.
A good debate as usual. We ought to thank the public and the restaurant community who did respond to our survey to help the council kind of flesh this one out.
Yes,
So.
and it was very in line. Well, a lot of it, much of it was in line with what people had requested.
Good. Okay, next is big topic that the council's working very hard on is our parking and transit task force. And they've been meeting for a while, and this was kind of a check-in. In past, we've kind of updated the public that we have this group out there working to try to come up with the right plan for our community. Kind of what were, clearly not conclusions yet, but what were some of the information that the task force brought forward, and also what were some of the questions the council had for them to continue to work on, Ben?
To set the stage for this, the town has done, I think, 3 large studies on parking and transit within the last 12 years or so. And so we've really done our homework on this issue, and I think everybody kind of has the sense that we're getting close to the point where we can start to take some very substantive actions on parking and transit in Breckenridge. So I'm very happy about that. I think it's about time that we take some bold steps. And so the task force is really a way to reach out to the community and get some feedback from people who are using parking and transit in Breckenridge on a daily basis. And really just trying to do that last step to make sure that we're not missing anything or overlooking anything, or but also to generate ideas. It's almost like a focus group that can help us generate solutions for some of our parking and transit problems. So the task force has been meeting, and they've been reporting back to us on their meetings, and they have generated some ideas, and surprisingly, they've come up with the same ideas that have been floating around for a long time. But also just coming to those ideas by really analyzing the issues and gathering facts. So it's like a fact-based analysis of our problems, there have been all kinds of issues floated, everything from paid parking on Main Street and other areas in town to building a parking garage out on F lot that's being discussed, to designated parking solutions to things for employees and things like that. We did one of the facts that came out of all of our learning and studies on the issue is that our business employees in town actually occupy a large percentage of our available parking in town. And so how to distribute that, I think we can just do a little bit better job at that, and then just free up some of the parking for our guests. But gosh, I mean, our employees, of course, are important. We don't want to treat them like second-class citizens. They are the backbone of our town, and they do all the work. So how to balance all those things? We are, in the background, we're working on expanding some of our parking out at the ice rink lot. Mm-hmm. We're expanding and adding how many?
About 60 spots.
Spaces. Mm-hmm. So 60 spots, and that's a very, very highly intensively used parking area, and it's really convenient for a lot of people, and it's kind of served as like a little overflow valve for Breckenridge parking, I think. And so we're relocating the pump track, which is sort of at the extreme eastern end of the ice rink, and that will add 60 spots, and that's great. Anything we can do like that does help. but maybe Erin can, you know, talk about some of the other ideas that have been generated from the task force.
That was going to you next.
It's the only other option, right? Or the next option. So more recently, they started discussing, or they have been discussing the employee parking, just like what Ben said. They are looking into other lots throughout the community with about 233 spaces total, the little
scattered lots.
Parking lots around town, using that for employee parking. They've also discussed using the ice rink and the satellite lot as places where employees can park, and even discussing maybe a small parking structure there as a potential. There isn't a study out or anything like that. We're not spending money on it yet. But maybe small structures there for employees. Something else that they're talking about is getting a parking meter vendor to come and talk to them to see what options they have there. In general, people in the parking task force do support a structure on F lot, so that is being discussed even more. And the next meeting is March 10th.
Right. And the plan now is to bring most of this to a head so you guys can talk about it at your retreat coming up in May, right?
Yes.
So it should be very important. Yeah, May 12th.
Yes.
So that is really going to be kind of where all this information that's being gathered by the task force all comes together.
That's right.
So it's probably the most important issue that we deal with day to day throughout the town. And finding the right balance is, as you say, Ben, is very, very important.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, transit is very much like all the other infrastructure systems in our town that we have to pretty much build for Christmas Sunday or Christmas, our highest capacity days. Otherwise, our town shuts down. Yeah. When everyone's in town. So it's a very difficult problem to solve, not just for parking in transit, but for water, for roads, for just every infrastructure system you can think of.
Well, and for those holidays too, in the most recent meeting, they also discussed the communication between town and employees and alternate parking for employees in town, so that we can help make that holiday traffic flow. Right,
so that they're not tooling around trying to find spots.
Yeah.
And ideally, if we didn't have a car problem, we wouldn't have a parking problem, right?
Right.
which is another part of that discussion of how much do you accommodate the car in terms of building for Easter Sunday. So you guys will have an interesting debate.
Well, yeah, and later we're going to talk about our sustainability measures, and that fits right into that as well.
Right.
And the basic fact is people don't spend money when they're sitting in their cars. They spend money when they're out walking down Main Street and shopping and skiing and mountain biking and doing all the things that they do. Yeah, it's an ongoing discussion. I'm really interested and very eager to get started, and I think that's going to happen sooner rather than later, so I'm excited about that.
Great, and great work by the task force, really. A lot of great volunteers helping out to really flesh this issue out.
Yes.
Absolutely.
One of the other topics the council worked on is we are very fortunate that our economy has recovered so well, and one of the funds that's doing pretty good is our open space fund.
That's right.
So the council had an opportunity, getting feedback from BOSAC, our open space group, to think about some other ways that money can be utilized beyond what we've been able to do in the past. So what was that highlighted as? So
BOSAC came up with four different additions to their pro forma. The first one is the B&B debt pay down, which the debt includes, I need my notes for this, but it includes the BOSAC paying $700,000 from the open space fund now, and then the remainder will come from the general funds. And this is a savings to the town because we get to pay it down in 1 year in 2015. And then the BOSAC will pay back to the general fund by 2020. Now, the next thing is the Habitat River restoration. So that's in the McCain Blue River property, which is $1,290,000, but that's going to be spread over the following 3 years. And then there's a Swan River restoration, which is $300,000, and that will be paid over the next 2 years. The third is land acquisitions, which we facilitate every year, which is amazing. I think we partner a lot with the county as well as some singular projects, but many times with the county, and it's an amazing program. And so that was $80,000 was added to the original $200,000. And then the fourth is the trail constructions from the Hoosier Pass to the Hoosier Pass Rec Path. Now this is an interesting one because it's $100,000 additionally annually, and it will be utilized, but it's also a great symbol to the county and the state that the rec path is really important to us. And this could include a rec path to Blue River, which of course is really needed for the people who live in Blue River, to get to work and to exercise. So it's pretty exciting projects.
Now, these are things in addition to what the Open Space Fund has been able to accomplish historically, which are trail maintenance, taking care of Cucumber, all those places.
Oh yeah.
So it doesn't diminish anything that they're doing currently. This is really in addition.
Right.
Yeah, it's because our sales tax revenue is outperforming our expectations, and so the fund is very healthy. And over the years, since I believe it's 1997, we have acquired 4,500 acres, and that's a lot of land, all around the Breckenridge area, and sometimes out into areas in Summit County, but in the greater Breckenridge area, the wilderness areas. We've 4,500 acres over the years, and I see that as an enormous benefit to all of us. Any property owner has benefited from that. Anyone who's looked up at a ridge line that didn't have a house on it or wasn't developed has benefited from it. And so the Open Space Fund is it's just one of my favorite programs that Breckenridge has. And I've been very lucky to be involved with BOSAC as a town council member. I've been the rep to BOSAC. And so the work that we do there, I think, is just phenomenal. So all of the trail maintenance that we do, river restorations, a lot of the acquisitions. We acquired the Main Street park that we're calling Prospector Park with open space funds. And so the benefits go on and on and on. You can all of our trail network. Many people don't realize it, but it's very difficult to get easements across private property oftentimes. And we've been very successful expanding our trail network by actually acquiring backcountry properties. So it's 5 acres here, 10 acres here, 40 acres here, but it enables a trail in a place where we couldn't have one before. And so our trail network depends on those acquisitions, and our town, Breckenridge, was just voted the #1 biking destination in the world by the readers of Single Track magazine, which to me speaks to how well we've developed our trail system, and that very system of acquiring those 4,500 acres and building a trail network that works for everybody in our area. I mean, it's just phenomenal. It's an amenity that just can't be matched. You can put us up against Park City and all these other places, and I think ours is competes with all of them. So
pretty amazing.
It's amazing.
Money can be leveraged so well and speed up projects now with the extra funds, right? Well, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back and fill you in on some other stuff that's been happening with our town council. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Breck Buzz. We're going to continue with a couple other topics that the council's been working on, and one that they're still in the middle of. Very exciting topic. It's the sign code downtown.
That's right.
And we are well noted for probably having a tough sign code, but the council started revisiting this a couple months ago with sandwich boards.
That's right.
So now where are we?
Okay, so where we are, as people probably know by now, the sandwich board sign change did not happen. So the sign code as of right now is the same. However, we are, is it next meeting?
Yes,
next
tour.
meeting, we're gonna do a little tour with the council, and the public is welcome to join us. And so we're going to take a look at the signs, what signs are up, how they compare to the sign code, so how many violations have kind of been accepted essentially, and whether we want to change the sign code or keep it the same. It's very interesting, it's quite lengthy, but it's definitely readable, and that's found on the Town of Breckenridge website. You can find the entire sign code, and it's not that difficult, but it's a read. So, but what we did pass at this past meeting was a change to the sign code enforcement. Now, previously, there was a letter sent in the beginning of the ski season and at the end of the ski season to remind business owners what the sign code is, especially pertaining to the holidays, holiday lights, banners and whatnot. And so then people would receive a verbal warning and then a letter, and then they had 72 hours from the letter to change what they were doing wrong, and then there was a court summons, and there was some time between the letter and the court summons, so it was very lengthy and a little bit complicated. So what we did pass an ordinance for was to change the sign code enforcement to include an educational time period where all of the business owners will be educated on whatever we decide in this upcoming next meeting or next couple meetings. So that education process would happen where the business owners would get a letter saying exactly what the new sign code is, if there is a new sign code. And then public service officers would be able to go around, and the planning department would be able to go around and cite people for infractions of the sign code. They would be tickets, but you could also call them penalty assessment notices. And so it would be a ticket, and so that would need to be paid. And then if the ticket goes unpaid, or if the business owner challenges, then the business owner would have a chance, their day in court. They would be able to contest the ticket, essentially.
Right. So, very interesting topic. One that's a tough one, because there's a lot to it. It's outside display, it's flashing signs, it's all types of things that can make a town look like Disney World, or it can look like Breckenridge.
Well, that's right. Once again, it seems to be a recurring theme, is that we're trying to find the balance between something that works for our business community and something that keeps Breckenridge looking like Breckenridge. Personally, I don't want a lot of neon signs on our main street or anywhere in Breckenridge, and thankfully those are not allowed. So, and I think we do, you know, as business owners and just citizens of Breckenridge, we all have different ideas of what looks good and what doesn't. So that's where the balance comes in, and we chose not to change the sign code itself. Because we really felt that would be probably opening a whole can of worms that we didn't want to open. And that's one thing we could agree on, is that it's pretty good the way it's written. It's rather strict, and I think it's been one of those things that historically has kept Breckenridge looking good. But it's tough to be a business owner. It's tough to attract people into your business, and you want to get as many people in there as you can. And so when you're on Main Street, you're always looking for ways, how can I maximize, my Main Street location? And we understand that, and we are, working very hard to make it work for everybody. The overall experience of being someone from another area and coming to Breckenridge and walking around, we want that experience to be as good as it can be. And I think it's probably better for the average person if there aren't a lot of flashing signs, and every window isn't full of all kinds of brightly colored signage, and without sandwich board signs kind of getting in the way. I mean, our sidewalks get narrow in the winter as it is, just because of the snow. And so sandwich boards was the subject of much discussion, and they are not allowed in the sign code. And I think actually some business owners might be surprised to know that. And so if you have a sandwich board, you know, that is one of those things that you could get a $100 ticket for. And then, you know, it's my belief that our business community wants very much to comply with the sign code as it's written. And so we're sort of, I see this as a process of just education that's a little more friendly than the process that existed before, which was an immediate summons to court. So I hope our business community appreciates our attempt at bringing everybody into compliance as closely as possible, while still not treating our business community like a bunch of criminals, because we are trying to work together with the business community to make it work for everybody.
So more to come. The council's still going to have their tour, at least one discussion coming up Tuesday, and then possibly more. I always love the liquidation sign on the one window that's been up for like 5 years.
Yes, yes.
An example of
Going
one
out of
that
business for the past 12 years.
which is partly what the sign code is designed to kind of try to prevent.
Which we can't change the message, I learned from our lawyer.
Yes.
We can't say that they can't say that. It just has to be smaller.
Exactly. Great. Ben, one of the other topics, one that the council chatted about the last meeting, as a matter of fact, is the ski area has a proposal before the Forest Service related to summer use. And the council has actually commented before, but this was kind of after the Forest Service has completed their process, and you had a chance to hear from the Forest Service about where they're at, and then also have the council chat a little bit about whether they want to take any more positions relative to that. So what was that all about?
Right, so the process with the Forest Service is that they have to go through, the ski area has to go through an environmental impact study, period, in order to see if what they're proposing would be really detrimental to wildlife or the ecology or the habitats. So that process is a lengthy process, usually, and it provides periods of time for the public to comment on the proposals. So the ski area made a proposal, and it includes all kinds of summer activities up at the ski area that have never existed before. And it's part of actually some legislation that was passed that some of our own politicians actually pushed through, making a policy that allows for more summer activities at ski resorts in the National Forest. So it's part of that. And so the proposal from the ski area includes all kinds of things like zip lines, which involve the construction of towers and fixed guide systems, and Jeep tours up high above tree line, which in some cases involve the building of extensions to existing roads and new roads in some locations. And so the comment period ended March 2nd, and Scott Fitzwilliams is the director of the White River National Forest, and he came to our meeting and spoke to us just about the proposal, the process, and we had the opportunity to ask him questions and give feedback. BOSAC, our Open Space Advisory Commission, actually drafted a letter with that was itemized with points in it that they wanted us to review and then ratify and then submit as part of the comment process. Now, that caused some discord in in the town council, I wouldn't call it discord, but we definitely have a lot of disagreements about some of the items in that letter. So the letter, singled out things like some of the specifics in the proposal, like the zip lines and the Jeep tours and all kinds of things like that. And so on town council, we just couldn't agree on the specifics of what we wanted in the letter. And there were also people on the town council who felt that we didn't have adequate time to address and compose a letter that would reflect our collective wishes. So we ended up not actually submitting a letter from town council or from the town of Breckenridge in the comment process in favor of each individual making their own comments. And some of us had the chance. I had a great opportunity to do that myself verbally to Scott Fitzwilliams himself in the meeting. So it was disappointing that we couldn't, it was disappointing to me, I should say, that we couldn't agree on a direction and then submit an actual letter, because other than the ski area, the Forest Service, the town of Breckenridge is the probably most important entity that has anything to do with what's happening at the ski area. And the changes that are proposed there are quite profound. Historically, the wildlife has largely been left alone in the wilderness areas that are the ski area. And so it's my view that using the summers, the wildlife kind of recovers from the intensive uses that they're subjected to over the winter. And this is changing that system. This is basically impacting the wildlife in the summer as well as the winter. And so I think it's a big change. And in terms of that larger nationwide legislation, we're the first place to have these kinds of proposals put in place. Us and Vail. Mm-hmm. And so it's a big deal, and we're sort of, nobody knows really what the eventual impact will be, I don't think, on wildlife and habitat in our area. So, I see it as a big deal. I see it as something that we've got to pay attention to. And, I made the point in the meeting that if you've ever been in a gondola car flying over Cucumber Gulch and you've seen foxes and you've seen beavers and you've seen moose and you've seen deer and you've seen elk and you've seen raccoons and the abundance of wildlife that is in Cucumber Gulch, I really would hate for that to change. And I don't want to take any chances with the wildlife in our area. Yes, we have an economic incentive to attract as many people here as we can. I think we have a lot of people now, but that is on the agenda for a lot of people, is to get as many people here as they can. But I would hate for that experience to be lost. I would hate for the wildlife that is here near our town and that we have kind of symbiotically coexisted with for decades now with the ski area. I would hate for that to disappear.
Strong feelings about this issue, huh? Could you quickly summarize, Erin, what were the proposals that the Forest Service highlighted for the council, just for the public benefit?
Sure. So there were 3 alternatives. Mm-hmm. The first alternative served as a baseline. It was take no action. So we would see no new developments up there. And then the second was everything that Breckenridge Ski Resort requested. There were multiple zip lines, canopy tours, above tree line, Jeep tours, mountain bike trails, as well as running the Imperial Chair in Peak 6. And so the third alternative, which was created by the Forest Service, was in reaction to many letters that were sent in by citizens, eliminated a few things. So that was the above timberline activities such as the Jeep tours, the trails, the lift operation of the Six Chair and Imperial. And then it was excluding the sawmill zip line and replacing the peripheral ore bucket canopy tour with the interior claim jumper canopy tour. So it was a compromise, essentially, which was brought on by citizens, and I think I'm showing my bias, but it's not my decision. It's Scott Fitzwilliam's decision, and it's one person, which I thought that was pretty interesting. That it all relies on one person. So we'll see what he decides. Right. Yeah, exactly. Right.
So certainly a topic that people should pay attention to, and
sure.
If the Forest Service completes their work, it should be fairly shortly here then that we'll hear a decision. That's the
we'll see.
We'll see.
I
Okay.
guess.
All right, let's go to another little controversial topic.
Sure.
The council has been wrestling a little bit with the sustainability of the community, and as it relates to restaurants, snack bars, and delis. And we have a system by which you can avoid paying an awful lot of money, particularly water tap fees, if you do a snack bar deli. But there's been a concern that maybe that's not the best mechanism, but the council had to kind of weigh through that and decide if they wanted to do anything.
And this is a hard one. It's really challenging because for a community that really wants to be sustainable, to go to a restaurant and use plastic and paper and all these materials that seems unnecessary from an outsider or a tourist, it's difficult. So, you know, when I first started on council, this was something that I thought about, you know, how can we change this? Well, it becomes a little bit more complicated. First, telling people about their business model and how to change it isn't so great all the time. I mean, that's something that we avoid to do because it's, you know, we have these freedoms. But maybe encouraging people to not use plasticware and napkins and paper plates. But if you delve in deeper, so we have these two categories, a restaurant and a snack bar deli. With a restaurant, they pay 4.5 single family equivalents per 1,000 square feet, and it has mostly to do with water, we think. For a snack bar deli, they pay only 0.9 SFEs per 1,000 square feet. So what that equates to, is a small 1,000 square foot restaurant would need to pay a tap fee of $29,947, where a snack bar deli only pays $5,990. So it's very attractive for people, especially starting out in the restaurant business, to start off as a snack bar deli and not need to wash dishes and things like that because they pay so much less in PIFs. So we discussed perhaps raising that levels to make it a little bit more fair, but at the same time, we discussed not wanting to discourage people from starting restaurants. So it's a difficult conversation, and we never came to a conclusion. Or actually, our conclusion was to just table it for a little while to see if any other ideas pop up that seem fair.
As always, the balance between sustainability and economic viability comes to play.
Right. Yeah, that is an issue that we bantered around for a lot of months, actually, in the sustainability committee, trying to come up with a balance. And at the end of the day, you know, changing something takes a leap of faith sometimes. You don't want to create unintended consequences for things. And at the end of the day, I think that's what we decided at the town council level, was that we didn't want to change something and have unintended consequences. Now, I just want to clarify a couple things. First of all, those fees, a lot of the fees involved in starting a new business actually come from the sanitation district, which we don't have control over. Right. We were just looking at the stuff that we do have control over, which is the PIFs and the water tap fees. And those would only apply to a business starting out in a space that hasn't had one before or hasn't paid the PIFs previously. So some restaurants, if they're occupying a building or a space that previously paid those, then
or some portion of
them, then they would be, you know, spared that expense. And so it's super complicated.
Right.
It's just, the downstream effect of all that is just that it's extremely complicated. The equations are very complicated. And we just didn't see a clear way to be fair about it to both the restaurants that have already paid the PIFs and the new restaurants coming in. At the end of the day, we have a very healthy restaurant scene in Breckenridge, I believe. We have more than 75 restaurants for a town of 4,500 people. And we all know that, our guests, use our restaurants extensively. So it's not just those 4,500 people, it's, a lot more than that. But the point is that we have a lot of restaurants and some very healthy ones in a town of our size. So
for the time being, it's status quo.
Status quo. And this is, and to Ben's point, there are a few different considerable fees when people start up. This isn't the only town fee either.
That's right. That's correct. And these would only affect brand new startup businesses that have either built or were never occupied before. Right. So the numbers would seem a little bit
conversion too, if it were a
conversions
retail store,
wouldn't be the full amount. Right.
If I could just speak to the customer experience. Okay, when you come to Breckenridge and you order a spaghetti dinner and it's served on a paper plate, some of us felt as though that's not good for the environment, and it's also not good for just the customer experience. So that's all. That we were trying to come up with some ideas to mitigate that problem.
Well, Ben, you've highlighted, as has Erin, a couple of comments about sustainability, which is a theme that the council has adopted as a very important goal. We produce an annual report that kind of talks a little bit about how well we did in that regard. And by the way, it is on the website, and we encourage people to check it out. Ben, you want to highlight a few kind of sparkling things that people may not know about what we've done this past year?
Absolutely. I'm very proud of our efforts towards sustainability in the town of Breckenridge. It's a priority for me that we sort of walk the walk and talk the talk in terms of asking everybody to be more sustainable. It's important that the town sets a good example in that regard. So, some of the things we've done very recently in Breckenridge's recent history is we built the solar gardens. Those provide 1,000 kilowatt hours of electricity, which is enough to power 250 homes every year, which I think is an enormous success. Not only because we were able to build them, but because Breckenridge was awarded about 25% of the entire state's allocation from Xcel Energy and that sort of system, which I think is a coup for a town of our size. And we were awarded that largely because we were willing to provide the land. So we were able to locate one 500 kilowatt hour solar garden out on the McCain property. And we were able to locate the other one out on the Stilson property. So that's, to me, a big deal and a big success. We've also passed a bag ordinance, plastic bags. We've reduced our use of plastic bags. We don't actually know exactly how much we've reduced it, but we certainly have. And you can see our locals have adopted that ethic, really well throughout town. You see everybody coming out of a city market with reusable bags, and the Breckenridge bag was very successful. It's a beautiful bag, and a lot of our guests ask for it and want to take it home with them back to wherever they're from. And so it's like free marketing for Breckenridge when they do that, and then they go home and shop with it. Which is just a huge success. So yeah, we've reduced the use of reusable or single-use plastic bags. We've built the solar gardens, and then we have this report which details, which is available on the Town of Breckenridge website, and it details all of the other initiatives that we have undertaken to increase our sustainability metrics. And it's kind of amazing. I was reading through this, And you want to venture a guess as to how many people have ridden our transit system since 1997?
I know the answer, so you already told
You know
us.
the answer. You've got this stuff memorized. Yeah. How about you, Erin? What do you think?
I already know the answer too because we were talking about it.
Okay,
Wait,
well,
I would guess 8 million.
Okay, you're right. It's 8 million, more than 8,200,000.
Isn't that amazing?
Which I think is a great, that's 8,200,000 trips that were not done in a car. To me, that's a big deal. And I know we can even do better as we improve our parking and transit systems throughout town. So a couple of these other statistics. This is a big one for me. Okay, our reduction in per capita water usage from the year 2000 to 2012. Have any idea how much we reduced our water usage?
This one I don't know.
About 80%.
53%.
53,
Wow.
okay.
Now, that's a big deal because when you compare Breckenridge to the rest of the state, we use about 39 gallons of water per person per day. And the average in the state of Colorado is 139. So in terms of water usage, we've done just about everything you can do to make our systems as efficient as possible. And of course, the low-hanging fruit in that equation was fixing a lot of broken pipes throughout the system and some of the bigger leaks that were occurring. And we reevaluate about 25% of the water infrastructure every year. And so the result of that over the past decade and a half has been in large part, this 53% reduction in our water usage, but also just, low flow toilets and other appliances. We have a pretty new housing stock, if you will. A lot of our housing has come online in the last 12 years or 14 years. And so a lot of that's more efficient than it would be in other parts of the state where the house was built in, right after World War II or something. And,
right.
And so there are many reasons for it, but I'm very proud of that. I think Breckenridge has done a great job, particularly because we are in the process of considering a new water plant and going down that road of spending a very large sum of money developing more water for the town of Breckenridge. It's really important that we make ourselves as efficient as possible and push that potential window of having to build that out as far as possible. It still is probably going to be necessary just because we only have one water plant. And so if we had a catastrophic forest fire, take out that water plant, we would be seriously out of luck and we'd be in trouble. So our water systems are incredibly important, and we are very efficient in our use of water.
Great stuff. Great stuff. Anything you want to highlight there, Erin, in terms of the sustainability?
The two boreal toads that
there
we
you
found
go.
in Cucumber Gulch.
They found them.
That's right. We have two boreal toads. The landmarking, we had 5 historic landmarking this year. As Ben said, new water conservation efforts. Also what was mentioned was the chipping program we started in 2014. And obviously the Arts District and the Breckenridge Grand Vacations Community Center and things like that, but it's...
Historic restorations.
Yeah, we did
fantastic.
a lot in 2014, yeah.
Very exciting. We really encourage people to take a look at that report, and we can only do better, right?
Absolutely. It's a work in progress, and it always is, and we'll just keep working on it.
Well, the last one I want to highlight is we always have some joint meetings with our fellow other governmental entities, and we had one with the school district, which was kind of the first one of the year that we've held, and a couple real important topics kind of got thrown around.
Yeah, and they're quite common topics that we discuss often, but this was new for the school district. So the first one was the field house that this idea that we've been throwing around, which I think would benefit obviously students who want to practice lacrosse and hockey, well,
Soccer.
Sorry, I'm the one without the kids. Yeah. Soccer, softball, baseball, all sorts of activities. But this would obviously benefit schools and for championships or playoff games and things like that. So that's pretty exciting. And so that was, I think the first time they started throwing around the idea as well, but they were rather receptive. And then we talked about workforce housing because their workforce actually uses up a lot of our workforce housing, which, I mean, obviously we need teachers, so it's a very important part of our community. But to see if maybe there were options for them to help us out, helping them out. So so that was one. And then a beautiful Breckenridge School update provided by the school district board. And then early child care education in Breckenridge, which makes sense because we assist child care in Breckenridge, and these are the kids that are going into their elementary schools. So they were talking about how beneficial that is, and it sets them up for their school life. And then we talked about traffic. Again,
No, really?
Yes, always. Surrounding the U.S. Pro Cycling Challenge,
right,
and how we just communicate well with the school district board and make sure that their
calendar
works with the Pro Cycling Challenge calendar. Yeah.
The kids like getting off from school and coming watching it, though.
I'm sure they do. Yes, yes.
Oh, no doubt about it. Yeah.
So these good conversations are great to kind of further possible partnerships, just knowledge,
Yes,
right?
yes, of course, of course. Because and somebody on their board might have this magnificent idea that could help with workforce housing and childcare and things like that.
Right. It was interesting that the principal at Upper Blue really highlighted that affordable workforce housing issue for her staff.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's a big deal. I think the schools lose teachers just because the teachers really can't find adequate housing. And the town of Breckenridge, I think, does a great deal to help prevent that from happening. But, stable, qualified teachers is the backbone of a good education system. And so the school district, I think they understand how important it is that their teachers have, good housing. I was a teacher. I was a public school teacher, and I know how hard it is. I taught at Battle Mountain High School over in Vail, and the first year that I taught, I lived in a bus barn.
Oh.
And it was very much the same problem over there as it is over here. We just couldn't find any, adequate housing. And then we did find some housing, and it was, a basement apartment in a house, which, all the windows were below grade, and it was teeny tiny. And we had it good compared with a lot of the other teachers. They were living in houses with 4 and 5 and 6 people. It's just a jungle out there. Housing is going to be an ongoing issue for us. We have a demand for, I think the figure was something like 350 attainable housing units today. And we'll probably be bringing on 44 rental units in the next 2 years. We're just not keeping pace with the demand in terms of our workforce and its needs. And teachers, I have a soft spot for teachers, and keeping them here once they're hired can go really far in terms of helping our educational system be successful for everybody.
Good. Well, we've about run out of time. I want to thank Erin and Ben for joining me. We covered a lot of topics of good discussions you guys have had in the past. Of course, you have good discussions every month. But we do want to remind everybody about the town council meetings are the 2nd and 4th Tuesdays of every month. We start with a work session at 3, and we go all the way into the evening with a formal meeting. And we do have our sessions where you can listen live as the council does it. If you can't, come and join us. Obviously, the town website is always available, and our council folks are always accessible for questions and feedback that our community has, and got some big topics coming up in the next couple of months that are going to be very important to the community. So we encourage you to get connected and participate. So
Great.
thank you both.
Thank you.
And
Thank
we'll
you.
see you next month at the next Breck Buzz.
You're clear.
Thanks, dude.